KMOJ. Today's R&B and throwbacks. Today is May the 13th. It's Wednesday, and it's 1 after the 1 o'clock hour. And right now it's time for Minneapolis 360. So I've got one of my favorite fellas on the line, Mr. Anthony Taylor. How are you today?
I am very good today, Glam Life Kim. I feel good. It's another day that we continuing to make sure that we give out good information to the folks in Minneapolis. Always good to hear your voice. You sound amped up. You turned up today a little bit?
I'm turned up a little bit today.
Okay.
You know, it's not even sunny outside, but I had my coffee, so I think that did it.
And the coffee and a little bit of Glenn Golden.
Yeah,
right.
Glenn gets me right every time. He gets me hyped up.
Glenn will get you right when you come into the studio. And of course, we are working remotely, so I cannot see Glam Life Kim or Glenn, but it is always good to hear your voice and ride shotgun with you on Minneapolis 360, Kim. So
absolutely.
Thank you as always. Hello, Minneapolis. Again, this is Minneapolis 360. I am Anthony Taylor, the African American Community Specialist for the city of Minneapolis. We are live today, again, talking about and hopefully giving Minneapolis, you guys, some tips and some good information on how to access information, be able to give information to your community, how you can help you and your family. Ultimately, my goal is to give pertinent and relevant information to folks in these times when we're dealing with COVID-19 and the impacts it has on our families, whether it's financially, whether it's emotionally, whether it's socially, physically. So a lot of this information I'm hoping is we're providing to you weekly is helpful. So we talked a little bit last time just about being able to be mentally healthy with our guest on last week and maybe some tips that you can follow to manage the situation in these times. I kind of want to go on that theme still a little bit today when we talk about health and we talk about wellness and healthy habits. We all understand that our whole routines have changed throughout this time that we've been in the house, not been able to go around. A lot of talk about physical distancing, which we need to do. But in order to be able to maintain and help your family, we got to talk about wellness. We got to talk about healthy eating habits. We got to talk a lot of those things that's important, because what we talk about a lot is being able to help your loved ones, check in with your loved ones, but you also got to get yourself right first. And today I want to talk a little bit about some tips today with my guest, Anna Lewis. Today she'll give us some information. She's been doing a lot of marriage and family counseling. She works in the Minneapolis public school system. I won't steal her thunder. I'll let her talk about that as always. But I do always want to make sure that we give up updated information and some statistics in Minneapolis on where we're at with COVID-19. Unfortunately, every week these numbers rise that I'm going to give you. So I really want this to sink into folks. Every week we give numbers and it's an increase. So hopefully this makes an impact to you and you hear these things, and then with the tips that we provide and that you hear all over the news, all over on flyers and windows and stores and gas stations, that we practice a lot of these things. We are at Minnesota with COVID-19 cases at 12,917 in Minnesota.
Wow.
Of those, that's a lot.
It went up.
That's a lot.
Yes.
And it's going up, Kim. And 1,435 are in Minneapolis. And of the people who've tested positive in Minneapolis, out of those 1,400 are 18% to be African American. Now in the city of Minneapolis, that's 32%. And it is frightening that these numbers continue to rise. And I don't say these numbers to make people uncomfortable, but I think we have to start making sure that we're doing the right things, because it automatically makes you feel uncomfortable if we're steadily going on the rise. And we're talking about 32% of African Americans in Minneapolis have tested positive for COVID. So that's just really disturbing. Mm-hmm. We know that Governor Walz has the peacetime state of emergency. He addresses it weekly. There's a special address tonight at 6 o'clock. You can tune in I'm sure on KMOJ as well as other local news stations to give an update on what happens with that. It is set to expire on the 17th, but I think there'll be some information from the governor at 6 o'clock to talk about what that looks like. Either it's extended or it's modified or it's eliminated. I'm not giving any of those answers because I don't have them. But if you tune in to Governor Walz, he'll be able to let you know where we go forward in the state of Minnesota. Again, also, too, he talked about the gap funding for folks to make rent payment and utility payments. 8,000 applications were received through the city of Minneapolis. The city looked at a lot of applications, in fact, all of them, and found some duplications in applications, and then also some folks who weren't eligible because they did not live in the city of Minneapolis, and there were about 6,500 applications. Remember, there was different parts of the money bucket you can get the funding. It was either the emergency housing assistance or the stable home school emergency assistance. So there was two different buckets. Email notifications will come out this week to see if you qualified. If you did qualify, first checks will come out May 18th, and then they'll start being administered on a weekly basis. Now, if funds aren't available, or if funds are available, then they'll look at a second set of applications, the next 1,500 for a second round, so folks can kind of access those informations. Unfortunately, we know that there's not enough money for everyone who applied for the rental assistance, but to find out about more resources, you can call the county at 612-348-3000. Again, 612-348-3000. If you did not qualify or did not receive those funds. Also, as well, with the gap funding for small businesses, there was about 1,200 applications received as well. So once a decision is made on the application, you will receive notification. Again, this is the same thing with the housing, right? There's not enough money for everyone, but you will get notification if small businesses were awarded the application. Before I get to Anna, I just want to have a quick conversation with you, Glam Life, about just your thoughts as we talk about these disturbing numbers in the city that's affecting our folks. If we're talking about 32% of the number of African Americans in the city, and how that disturbing that is to hear.
It is. It is. Because when you think about it, I believe our number of people, as far as African Americans in Minnesota compared, to other nationalities, is pretty low. So the fact that such a high number of us is, reporting positive on these tests, it is disturbing. And so that's why it's just important for us to remember to, continue to practice physical distancing. Let's just be safe. I know even like at the nursing homes right now, they're checking temperatures. I mean, I don't care if you got to check your temperature randomly. I got a little cousin who just, his job, he had to take a test because of his job. He had no symptoms and he has COVID and had to stop working. They placed him on a leave, because they tested him and he tested positive. And he's like, but I feel okay. So,
Right.
I mean, you just never know. So, I mean, let's take this serious, you guys. We definitely don't want any more unexpected, deaths in Minnesota. I mean, over the world. I'm not going to just say Minnesota, but I mean, it hits home when it's so close to us, right?
Absolutely. And then when our world, as all of us, are turned upside down, and the quicker that we can be able to practice these things, hopefully the quicker that we can get past this virus and
Yes.
nobody else is getting sick, or
And get
we
back
can
to
continue
normal.
and get back to normal. So again, physical distancing, hand washing, making sure that we stay at home as best we can. All of those tips that we provided over the course of the last couple of weeks
Mm-hmm.
about going to the grocery store and making sure that you only can go out for essentials. Just make sure we practice those
Things.
measures so
Yeah.
we can get back to
Keeping your house
normal.
clean. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, 100%, and also too being tested. So making sure
Yes.
that you can get tested. We provided some information again where you can go to get testing. If you didn't write those down, please call 311 to be able to get those testing sites. So
Mm-hmm.
with that being said, I am happy to welcome Anna Lewis today to talk about some ways that we can be well,
And
some healthy
healthy.
habits,
Yes.
some tips for our young people that are in our homes constantly driving us crazy because they cannot go to school. But we cannot forget about the young people and also the adults. So Anna, welcome to KMOJ Minneapolis 360.
Welcome, Anna.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Absolutely.
It is a pleasure for you to be here. Tell us a little bit about what you do for Change Incorporated.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you mentioned earlier, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I've been doing school-based mental health in Minneapolis since about 2012. So I work with all age groups, and right now I'm at Edison High School over in Northeast, primarily working with teens. But Change Inc. as a whole provides not just school-based mental health, but just mental health for the community. So it's not, specific to students, which is great. And then just on a personal level, I'm married and I have two little girls. One is almost 3 and one just turned 5. So I've been, parenting through this quarantine and kind of getting to test out some of these tips on my own kids.
And you got some little ones, so I know you're gonna give
Yep.
the people in Minneapolis some really good tips because you got babies, and a lot of us who are at home with our babies need to know this information. So if we're talking about this pandemic and we're talking about stress, and we're talking about stress that comes in many different forms, whether it's the physical, the mental, the social, the isolation. How can people really manage this stress, and especially when they've got kids at home? So stress management is got to be the number one thing on people's minds besides the other things. Correct, Anna?
Yeah, absolutely, especially since a lot of times our kids can sense our stress. So even if they are really, really young and you think they might not be aware of what's going on in the world, they don't need to know much to know that parents are stressed out. So definitely very important for adults to manage their stress so they can take better care of their little ones. So the biggest thing I recommend is really being careful with how much news you're consuming, watching what you're reading, including social media, and take breaks when you need to. I know we all want to feel informed, we all want to be aware of what's going on, but sometimes those things get to a point where they're causing more harm than good, trying to be in the know. And of course, there's a lot of misinformation or rumors, especially in social media. So just being really careful about how much of that information you're consuming so that you can keep your stress levels low. And then, of course, taking time for activities that you enjoy, because if you are bored or you're feeling overwhelmed and you move to something that you enjoy doing, that's going to be helpful for your stress levels. And then I love that you guys are saying physical distancing, not social distancing, because, of course, one of the effects of this pandemic is people feeling lonely and isolated. And so finding time to connect with friends and family, whether that's through video chat or even plain old snail mail, sending a card, getting groceries for some of our older family members that might not be able to get out of the house as much, but also knowing that a lot of us are in front of our computers these days doing video chats and having meetings in that way. So knowing that it's okay to take a break from those two, what you're really wanting to look for is quality in connecting with people, not quantity. So it doesn't necessarily mean sitting there in front of the computer for an hour, but really, having quality time with those people, even if it's at a distance.
And that's
Another
great.
big tip that I have is really lower those expectations. There is such a thing as good enough. I know my kids and a lot of kids out there are getting way more screen time than they previously were, and that's okay because we're all trying to, find times in the day to get our work done, to get school done, and to take a break. So I think really lowering the expectations. Your house is not going to look perfect. Work might not be perfect. School time might not get done perfectly, but just, doing good enough in this time so you're not putting so much stress on yourself.
That's huge. That's huge,
Absolutely.
Anthony, because especially with the school and the house, yes, with the kids being home more, of course, the house is getting messier. And sometimes it's stressful for us as parents to be at home and to see our house a mess. And then not only that,
Yes.
it's like, okay, well, you got to find the balance between cleaning up and doing schoolwork. And it does become stressful on the kids because now you got them waking up earlier so they can try to get everything done. it's
Yeah,
not
yeah. So
easy.
letting yourself know that good enough is okay for now. You know, we're in the middle of a crisis. Good enough is good enough.
Okay. That's important for
And
me, I
that,
think. I needed that advice.
and I think that's important for everybody. And that's a great point, Kim and Anna, is that the fact, and I think you touched on that. It's about a mindset change, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I know I've talked to colleagues who are, you know, really struggling with seeing themselves as, you know, quote unquote lazy or feeling overwhelmed. And a simple mindset change, you know, when we're stressed out, some people go into over-functioning, some people go into under-functioning. So those people that you're seeing a lot on social media, they're learning new skills, they're doing new hobbies, they're cooking, they're exercising, and that can really make a lot of us feel down on ourselves, like, why am I not using this time in a productive way? But just knowing that some people, when they're under stress, that's the reaction they need to over-function in order to feel safe. And then some of us are more under-functioners, where we maybe need a little bit more sleep. We need a little more downtime. We need to withdraw a little bit. And that's okay, too. And changing the mindset from thinking, oh, I'm so lazy, to this is what my body needs right now. That's huge.
Great tips. I'm with Anna Lewis from Change Incorporated. Gave a great suggestion. Great suggestions on mindset change. What about the physical, Anna? Now, you know, I'm a person who likes to go to the gym. Obviously, like most people who have gym memberships, cannot access those, and it's really been roughly going on 3 months here close that gyms aren't been able to be open. So how can I take care of myself physically besides, you know, proper eating habits? What can I do?
Yeah, you know, there's lots of ways to exercise outside of the gym. And I got to say, my dad is the same as you are. He goes to the gym almost every single day. That's a big time for him to, like, recharge, reset, set himself up for his day. But, I mean, you can jog, you can walk, you can bike outside. There's a lot of things, even inside. There's tons of free fitness sites right now, or YouTube. You can find a ton of workouts that you can do from home, and a lot of those are even geared towards younger kids. Like, I know we've done yoga with my little two, just off of a YouTube video. We've done karate, like, we've done a few different things. So there's definitely ways to get creative about working out and being physically active outside of just going to the gym. But I will say, I definitely understand for those people that are just like hardcore gym goers, this is hard on them. It's hard to not have that routine. And so acknowledging that, yeah, it's really hard. And how can we, you know, gear towards positive solutions versus being stuck on the fact that your routine is thrown out of whack.
And also too, and just to add this, you know, I'm such a creature of habit, right? So I like to go into the gym. I like to get my workout in. It's part of my routine before COVID-19 started. And what I did was adapt to the fact I can't. So I started to do more outside activities. So do some running, some biking, and what I noticed that I forgot about when COVID and the pandemic hit is that it makes me feel better. I feel better.
Absolutely.
I feel sharper mentally, and I'm able to handle stress better once I've broken a sweat and did some physical things. Isn't that funny how that works with a little bit of physical activity?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, they say motion equals emotion. So when you're in motion, you're more likely to feel better.
Wow.
And I thank you for saying that. And I just want to, can you touch on something here real quick as we shift from individual? We'll go and talk about how we can help our young people. But as a licensed marriage and family therapist, what is some advice for couples, right, who are in a marriage, who have a family, who typically, hopefully, sometimes schedules are different and they're not used to being around each other all the time, every day? Like, what are some tips for a married couple through this process to be able to handle
Or
being
engaged
home and
couple.
stress? Engaged couples, common law, all those things, Kim. I mean, what are some things
Yeah.
that you can tell families and couples?
I would say, try your best to find times to connect in really meaningful ways. Again, quality over quantity, right? So you're wanting genuine connections, and find time to be apart, whether that's being in a different room in the house. Maybe you each put on headphones while you're on your phone to kind of zone out a little bit and have your alone time. Different people need different amounts of alone time. And so, trying your best to find those ways to connect and be apart. And this could be a really great opportunity to reconnect, with the hustle and bustle of everyday life and having kids and going to work and sports and extracurriculars. It's really easy to get disconnected from your partner. And so this, for a lot of people, could be a really good opportunity to have those moments of reconnect and to really, take into account what are the things in their relationship that maybe need a little bit of work, or that you can communicate about a little bit more openly. So that would be my advice. Try to connect, and then try to find moments of alone time.
Great advice.
Yes.
I think you can be able to find ways why you fell in love or really like the person that you're with around these times, and maybe some creativity can definitely help.
Do a puzzle.
What about our young?
Something.
Go ahead, Kim.
No, I was saying do a puzzle together or something. And I think it's important not to neglect neither, because, you can get lonely at a time like this, too, because everybody can be so kind of irritable and just kind of, depressed because they're cooped up in the house. And it's nothing personal against you, but you can start to feel, lonely if you're always, if the other person is always just kind of to themselves. And so, I think finding things that you guys can do together will also, help, whether it's a puzzle, whether it's sitting outside on your porch and having a little mini picnic. I mean, whatever you got to do to keep it fresh. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and a lot of times when as a therapist, when you start couples therapy, you don't focus necessarily on the problem, but you ask them about when they met and what made them fall in love. And so that's something you could do with your partner at home, talking about your first date or when you met, to kind of remind yourself of how you ended up, falling in love with this person.
Yes, I love it.
Definitely a great way to reconnect, folks. So I hope you wrote down some of these tips, especially for your loved ones and yourself. Let's kind of transition into the young people at home, Anna, when we're talking about our children, even as young as your babies that you have at home to teens, right? How can we help those young people who feel stressed during this pandemic?
Absolutely. So you might notice in your kids a lot of behavioral changes during this time. They might be more irritable. They might be acting out. You might see some excessive worry or sadness. They're having a hard time concentrating on schoolwork. Or they might go back to, they might do what's called regressing, which is when they go back to behaviors that they've previously outgrown. And, a lot of times kids don't show symptoms of anxiety or depression the same way adults do. A lot of times, younger kids especially, it'll be a tummy ache, it'll be a headache. It presents itself as a more physical symptom. And especially for teens, a lot of times what I hear is, I'm bored, I'm tired. And, really trying to dig in a little deeper, because those words are often code for I'm sad, I'm lonely, I'm overwhelmed,
Absolutely.
I'm nervous. Because their world's been turned upside down too, Something I'm hearing from a lot of kids and parents is kids are sleeping way more, like 10, 12 hours a day. And that's a really normal response to stress, is increased sleeping. And so I think for parents, something that's really important is being really patient with that. Again, change that mindset. Your child is not lazy because they're sleeping, 10 to 12 hours, or maybe they need naps in the middle of the day. They're just responding to the stress in the way that their body knows how. And so I think patience is a huge piece. And another one of my biggest pointers, especially for parents who have younger kids, talk to them about COVID-19. Be honest about what's going on. Because, at a developmentally appropriate level, because a lot of times, if we keep this sort of information from our kids, but they're sensing stress and they're sensing that things are different, they will often come up with really horrible scenarios in their head that are way worse than what's actually going on. And so by being honest with them and talking to them about what is going on, it gives them a break from catastrophizing, worst case scenario, imagining zombies breaking down the door or whatever that might be. So there's a couple of really great resources. St. Jude's came out with a COVID coloring book And it's really great for younger kids. I would say probably up to like 8 or 10 years old. And it just explains a little bit about what the virus is, and they can color it, and you as a parent can, read it to them and talk through them. So that's a really great way to let little ones know what's going on. And then for kids that are a little bit older, there's a COVID time capsule, and I sent Casper these resources, so hopefully you guys can get them up on a website. But it's a time capsule for school-age kids, and they go through and they fill out how are they feeling, what's going on in their world right now. This is a historical time for, lack of a better term, it's an unprecedented time. So when they're adults, to be able to look back at what it was like, what their life was like during this time, but it's also a great tool to help them process what's going on, and it gives you as a parent great insight about what your kids are feeling and how they're perceiving this particular event. So those are a couple resources for younger kids, and also just reassure them that they're safe. I think the way we say things is really important. So instead of, shelter in place, we're safe at home. Tell them it's okay to be upset, validate their feelings, especially for those older kids that are experiencing a lot of disappointment, whether it's prom was canceled or graduation, for kindergarten, 8th grade, 12th grade, all these exciting things that are supposed to happen as the school year comes to an end. That's a big loss for them. So validating for them that, of course, there's bigger things, more traumatic things happening to people, but still saying, that's really terrible. It's really hard to go through. And then, of course, role modeling, how you're taking care of yourself, eating well, exercising, and talking to your kids about why those things are important to stay healthy.
Excellent advice. And a couple of things that I picked up on as we move closer to the end of our show, and is the fact that what you said was important, and I think it was talk to your children, your young people about this, right? And I think that's one of the most important things, and be honest and transparent about that, because I think kids or young people are a lot smarter than what we give them credit for.
Exactly,
so
that's right.
Being open and honest, about the situation they're dealing with. And also, I think for parents, just to recognize the code words that are out there, because young folks can't necessarily articulate what they feel, right? Mm-hmm. So when you talked about being tired or bored, it really means what you talked about: sad, lonely, and nervous. So for parents, just to be able to recognize the fact that this is what they're saying, but this is actually what they feel or mean, I think was important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I just want to make sure, too, that we don't forget our graduates. It's so sad. Like, I'm so disturbed right now. Yeah, for the ones who, were supposed to graduate this year, those who are going to, go off to college, or even if you're not going off to college, it's still, it's hard. You wait so long. What is it, 18 years for this day to come?
Yeah.
And then you can't actually walk the stage. So I think, too, just, hey, still doing something great for those students who are supposed to graduate, even though they're not able to graduate. Man, I don't care if you do a mini graduation in your house.
That's a great point.
Right.
Yeah.
I've seen you could decorate your driveway, and you can, put a couple chairs out there for those people that's in the house, and they can still walk the driveway and clap for them. I mean, make them feel important and special. I think that's still, I know I'm dealing with that with my daughter. Like, she's like, I don't even want to no more, because now that they've changed it to a virtual, she's like, I don't even care about graduation. And I'm like, oh, no, we can't let that happen. So let's not.
Yeah, you can't let that happen.
Yeah. So, and if you guys know somebody who's supposed to be graduating, man, still call them and say congratulations. Make them feel important.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a huge loss for a lot of those kids. And, teenagers have this great way of saying, oh, I don't even care about it.
Right.
That's a code word that they use to try to cover up those feelings or push them away.
Right.
Yeah. Excellent information, excellent points. Kim, you couldn't have said it better. I think as adults, we tend to not understand that graduation was important when we were in school, right? So it's definitely important to our young people. So Anna Lewis with Change Incorporated today. Great information, Anna. I thank you for being a part of KMOJ and talking to folks today. So I really appreciate you, and thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for
Yes.
having me. It was great talking to you guys.
Thanks, Anna. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Anna Lewis with Change Incorporated. Kim, real quick, just quick thoughts before we get out of here about what some of the things she said.
Man, I just thought it was wonderful because I think we forget about our health, our health and wellness, and I think that we forget about how this is, emotionally disturbing. We may not notice it, but like you said, there's different things that we do and say that mean that hey, there's something missing, and it's because this is all so new and different to us. So let's not, forget to just do like she said. It doesn't have to be perfect. Do the best that you can do. Don't expect a whole lot because this is all different for everybody. And let's keep praying that this is going to change soon.
Absolutely. Get outside, do some physical activities, take care of yourself, check in with people, do everything that's possible to make sure that you look out for yourself and your loved ones.
Yes.
So great information today from Anna. We are out of time today, unfortunately. Thank you, Minneapolis, for listening. Please be safe. Please be careful and take care of you and your loved ones. This is Anthony Taylor, Minneapolis 360. I will see you next week.
All right. One love, kings and queens. Until next time.